All right, everybody. Well, today we're excited to bring in our next guest speaker in MKT365 Esports Marketing. Um, Rob Johnson is in sports and entertainment, and now I would even say entrepreneur in the sports and tech industry. Um, he's really got a really great, interesting background, and I'm really excited to have him tell you a little bit about the things that he's done in esports, traditional sports, and now in his own venture. So please welcome Rob.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining on a Friday morning. That wasn't my favorite times for classes in college, but really excited to be here. From Philly myself, actually originally from South Jersey. Rode a lot in the school. Rode against St. Joe's for many years, but just want to talk a little bit about what I'm doing with Ventnor Ventures. I'm going to talk about the path of how we got to this point. Take some questions, and then I've worked in esports through before the boom happens. Now where we see esports kind of finding its way as a niche sport but continuing to grow worldwide. So happy to take any questions about where this may be going and where emerging media and niche sports and what we've learned from esports and what to take that with you as you guys take your next step, whether that may be grad school, obviously jobs, and certainly your career. So just first and foremost, my name's Rob Johnson, originally a South Jersey guy, lived in Philadelphia for close to 20 years almost, and I've been in sports for, this is my 21st year. Actually, Professor Lutz here was I think my first internship was with the Philadelphia Eagles in a box office, and it's fun. Done a lot since then, but right now I'm a partner in a venture capital firm, Ventnor Ventures. What we do is we invest seed rounds and also advisory shares for sports tech companies that are in a really early stage. So some of these companies, it might be even helpful to you, but one is Advanced Sports, and they help within the sports and entertainment industry people get jobs, help build their resumes up, help get coaching for getting into the sports industry. So one of the guys I've worked with for years at the Philadelphia Flyers, Pete Powell, has been leading that business for us, and we've been involved for a little over a year. Esports focused. We in our portfolio we have a company called LeagueSpot. They are actually the leader in the world right now for collegiate esports. So about 30,000 students and about 900 schools play on this software platform that is really a white label product that helps get matches together. And if you think of, sports needs a field to play, esports needs a field to play. So helping get matches together, and they've been doing that for a few years. Also work with the Active Sports Summit. That's its first event is going to happen at the Star. I'm an Eagles fan, so this sucks to say. However, at the Dallas Cowboys Training Center in Frisco, and that'll be in April. And that's bringing together a lot of the sports tech, B2B, business to business focused, really entrepreneurs that are trying to figure out this next phase into sports, which I'll talk about a little bit, how I got here in the first place. And then a company called Sports Masters, which takes master sports. You guys aren't there yet, but if you're 40, 50 plus, you're a college athlete, maybe you want to continue to participate in your sport. For me, it's rowing. For some people, it's biking. For some people, it's now pickleball. But communities that can organize together, find coaching, find equipment, be able to organize that through one central place, monetize through taking a percentage of each. So that's just a small aspect of the companies that we work with. Really, our goal from the venture capital side is we write a small check in order to help them get going. And then myself and my partners, we help advise to make sure the day-to-day business is going. It's making sense, that when the entrepreneurs have questions about building the business, that we can help answer or find the people. It's a really interesting, fun business that you can make your own schedule, which is kind of part of the fun. Not having to be in a 9 to 5 and being able to work at your own pace is, at some point in your life, something that some people really like to do, and I've been enjoying that since. But it took a minute to get here. So over the past 20 years, I started with the Eagles when I was an undergrad in college. That started to really shift my focus of what I wanted to do within sports. Got very fortunate in opportunities, but it wasn't easy. So after I graduated undergrad, I went to get my MBA. I went to Jacksonville University for a couple different reasons. One, they had offered a grad assistant for me to be a rowing coach. They would pay for my school. I could obviously get my degree. I could coach, and then I knew that there was a football team there, and I had experience with the Eagles, so it would make sense for the Jaguars to instantly hire me as soon as I got there. Was thinking in my head. So I got to Jacksonville first year, trying to get my MBA. Was trying to figure out how to get intros. Used my network the best I could in order to see if I knew anybody at the Jaguars, and I kept striking out. I got interviews and just couldn't find an opportunity. While I was going to school, while I was coaching, I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Like I did everything I was supposed to. I got my degree. I have internship experience. And it just got very frustrating. And it took me a year or two. And one day, in our cafeteria at school, there was a flyer for a Jaguars ice cream truck driver. And I was like, you know what? That's it. I'm going to be the best ice cream truck driver in Northeast Florida. I'm going to turn the team's fortunes around, sell all the tickets, get the entire community behind me. And because it was a business school, I put together a whole business plan of how I was going to make this ice cream truck for the Jaguars take over Florida and save the franchise. So I did get an opportunity to pitch that, and started going through. It was like, this is what we're going to do. Here's a plan. Had PowerPoint, and they just stopped me. Like, this is an hourly ice cream truck job. Like we're not. This isn't what we're doing. I was like, so. Like I prepared really well for it, and they said, "Listen, you seem like you're really passionate, you know what you're doing. Come back, we might have something for you." And then I actually got a marketing and special events paid internship, which turned into my first full-time job with the Jaguars as marketing coordinator about a year later. So it was a really frustrating journey to get really my first full-time gig into sports, and fortunately, the timing for the Jaguars was the Jack Del Rio years where we were winning, not the in-betweens, which weren't so great for the team. But so did that for a few years, was just finishing my MBA, really enjoyed coaching, really enjoyed Jacksonville and obviously working there. But I knew, being a Philly guy, I wanted to get back eventually. And I started the process over again. Who can I talk to? Who's in my network? Who have I met? And, just cold emailed people, probably including Professor Letts too. Like, hey, listen, I'm trying to move back to Philly. Does anybody know anything going on? And one cold email got picked up by a woman, Lindsay Massiangelo now. Her husband actually works for the Eagles today. But she was a marketing director for the Flyers. Is like, actually, we might have something. Can you be in Philly next week to take a meeting? And I'm broke. I just graduated. I used like the last $3 on my credit card in order to get like the last Spirit flight in order to go take this meeting. And that ended up leading to my job with the Flyers. And I was there for almost 10 years. And got to be able to do some really great things with the Flyers. And the Flyers are owned by Comcast Spectacor. So from a marketing perspective, really learning how this digital transition was starting to take place. And I know I'm aging myself, but like we were starting the Twitter page for the Flyers. Like Gritty wasn't a thing, not even thought of. YouTube was just becoming a medium that we could do stuff, but the NHL would tell us you can't put highlights on here. And working with NBC, that's also owned by Comcast, trying to find different ways to innovate this team that, and 2010 was pretty good. Went to the Stanley Cup Finals, had a good run, but that led to a lot of opportunities. So within working with the Flyers, became director, became vice president. That opportunity came up to represent Comcast in a project that was originally called Philly Live. It was this hole in the ground where next to the Spectrum, and what do we do to develop that into an entertainment district that can feed the stadiums, that can feed Flyers fandom, that can feed Sixers fandom at the time, and it became Xfinity Live. So I got to be part of the process of working with the city, working with different partners in order to build what Xfinity Live is, and it's changed a lot over the past 10, 12 years. But got to build it, got to know what the hospitality industry is, how to use every sense of marketing, and how to get the right partners on board, how to get the right messaging across to fill a room, how to build fandom and get people to come early, leave later, and have a better experience. Ultimately, for the Flyers game, was originally, or just any Wells Fargo Center event. It took a lot of planning, a lot of work, of a lot of people. So that's where I got a first taste of building something. I was like, okay, this is building things is cool. So after Xfinity Live, I went back to the Flyers and I led their digital marketing and partnerships, working with NBC very closely on selling sponsorships, pitching it, making sure new business development items that came to the building that we were able to monetize and help grow Flyers fandom, the Wells Fargo Center events. And some of the other businesses, and got to build some really cool stuff. When you have Comcast money, you get to do cool things. And that really led to, all right, I want to keep building. And maybe the traditional side of team sports is one, from a pay standpoint, these jobs don't pay the best. And I started to meet a lot of people that were working within startups, were working within emerging media companies and video games, and could really start to see that from the trends of who's watching a Flyers game on television, and it's kept skewing older and older. And this is just something, as you're looking at any marketing, you're like, all right, who's actually watching this? What's the demographics, and what do they care about, so I can message this correctly? And we could see every year the demographic getting older of who was watching a Flyers game. Okay, what are these younger people doing? What are people under 40 watching? What are people under 25 watching? And it led more and more to the rise of Netflix. Again, dating myself, but this is a thing that came on very quickly of, oh crap, like we have a ratings problem, we have a share of mind problem, because there's so many entertainment options out there that weren't there 20 years ago. So rethinking about how to message and get the Flyers product, the Wells Fargo Center events, and get that top of mind, we looked at everything. And gaming was one of the bigger ones that came up. And so I reached out to a bunch of different game publishers, and some friends and I were playing these games like a Jackbox Party Pack, and having a great time with it. And if you've never played a Jackbox Games game or Jackbox Party Pack, it's really simple. You use a phone and a mobile browser. You don't have to download an app, and you put in a code, and really quickly you can share an experience with 50,000 people in a user-generated prompt or a question. I was like, this would be great on the Flyers video board. So I cold emailed the CEO. I was like, hey, can you make me a video game? Not kidding. Like, I work for the Flyers here. Like, we want to put this on the video board from a marketing perspective. And at the time, we didn't have digital ticketing. And digital ticketing today is not great, but we didn't have digital ticketing to know more people in the building. So like, I'll drop a cookie on the device. We'll figure it out later. We'll remarket events. Like, it'll be fine. And engaged with them for a year or two. And then eventually the guys at Jackbox Games said, can you come build this for us? And that was the first time I even looked at getting into video games or even talking about esports. We discussed it about how emerging media and how to get the fans younger, but we never really made any actions on it. And I jumped in 2017 to go make video games with Jackbox Games. And for a couple years, built a couple test games that we played with the Arizona Cardinals. Alabama football, had a couple sponsors with it. It went fine. And really got a big break where I found out through NBC contacts that Jimmy Fallon's favorite games are Jackbox Games. I was like, oh, that's convenient. That's really lucky. So worked with NBC, got Jackbox Games on the Tonight Show, played it a couple times. He invested in the company and really gave this small video game company kind of a leg up in where we could grow and what we could do. And then just being out there and having opportunities and how the universe works. Was 2 years into that. Obviously, Comcast had known that I was working in video games after being with the Flyers for 10 years and being a Philly guy, and got a call from Dave Scott at the time, president of Comcast Spectrum, where he asked, he's like, hey, listen, we're about to invest a lot of money into video games. You're in video games. Can you just go check out what we're doing? Just give me your thoughts. And I met a company, Nerd Street Gamers. They had just raised a small amount of money in order to build esports venues across the country. Looking at the trends of more and more people are getting into and playing video games. There's no field of play for games. Like, if you're looking at one of the fastest growing sports, which at the time that's what data was showing us, one of the fastest growing sports in America, and let's say it was hockey, and you didn't have ice rinks, it could be really difficult to grow that infrastructure, to grow what this business is. So essentially, it's an esports infrastructure company. Comcast was going to invest in it. They were going to, and what they did is they purchased a franchise for the Overwatch League at the time from Activision. And Comcast really wanted to shift more into gaming. And I was kind of right place, right time, because I had the knowledge base working with Jackbox Games, having known how Comcast works. So became an advisor, and then quickly became chief marketing officer and then chief operating officer, raised the Series A with the company. And if you haven't taken an investment class yet, as you're growing a startup, you take some seed money, you give away a little bit of share of your equity to get more money so you can hire people, so you can pay yourself. Then you raise the Series A, and that's kind of your next step before you can start to grow and eventually either go public or pay investors back because your business is doing well. So we raised a Series A, and with Comcast, Five Below, a local retailer, and a couple other, 76 Capital, if anybody's familiar with any of this, but was able to have some success. Pandemic hit, in-person gaming, not a great investment, not a really easy business to run. So took the model online. It's really not the same. The consumer shifted a little. Obviously, the Overwatch League was very hot for a minute, and esports was very hot during the pandemic. And then the realization that this is smaller market than we all thought. But in the meantime, there's still a market there, and that's what I'll talk about next. Is from that point, one of our investors had decided he was going to raise a bunch of money and go start a company called Playfly Esports in 2020. Part of that was tackling how to grow esports, not only from an engagement but also from an advertising perspective, because people have to pay for these things. So how could a large advertising company that's looking at multimedia rights across college, across being able to sell television spots for regional sports networks, how can esports fit into that? So I led the emerging media and esports division for Playfly Sports as we launched the company, and grew from 5 people, 5 of us, to 1,000 in about 26 months. So one of those really cool stories. One of the offices in Berwyn, not too far from obviously the campus there, New York City, and then obviously in LA, and had a really good run within there. And this is where I think esports focus came more clear, that with gaming versus traditional sports, and from a marketing perspective, esports doesn't age up the way a normal sport was. So let's just say we were all playing soccer when we were younger, and maybe we like the MLS, and you'll continue that trend likely for the rest of your life, or even football. Like, you like football when you're younger, you like football when you're older. The NFL can age up fans. What esports never did and can't do still is age up fans. And there's a couple of reasons why. One, esports is just a broad term of a bunch of games that some people might like and some people might not like at all. Like Call of Duty might not be everybody's favorite game. League of Legends might be. Those are two very different experiences, both participating and spectating. So to say there's a bucket esports fan, it's really a fraction of a fraction of, I like to participate in gaming, I like to compete in gaming, I like to watch gaming, and then the little tiny crack of, I like to watch this particular game. And when you go one more layer deeper on that, that game itself, one, like Overwatch became Overwatch 2, some people might not like that change and say, well, I'm out. And some people might not like when there's an update. If a meta changed in one specific season in between one Call of Duty game, and people are like, you know what, my favorite character, or the favorite play I play, it's not working for me anymore, I'm out. So you lose fans so much faster, and then to get them back, there's many people like, well, I used to play Call of Duty, but now I don't understand that these weapons in this loadout for Warzone are going to have, it doesn't feel the same to me. So it's extremely difficult to age up a fan in esports and marketing, but there's still an opportunity here. So between 18 and 25, this is where we really focus at Playfly Sports, because we know that, one, your age is a captive audience, and there's many college teams out there that are participating and have the time and ability to play. So we treated it, I'm not kidding, like a nightclub. Like, yeah, you'll participate after the age of 25, but for the most part, you're not going to participate in gaming as much as you did as your life changes. And you're probably not spending as much time or money on it as you age up in the future either, because of all the changes that I detailed before. This makes esports and gaming a really unique marketing opportunity, where you do have a very narrow window to capitalize on fandom, to capitalize on whatever revenue you can pull from it, and that includes tickets if there was an event. Which, listen, there's great events all over the world that include esports, but they're very difficult to sell because of this narrow range. Also, you don't have a ton of money at that time of your life either. So if you're looking at it from an advertiser perspective, or you're the Wells Fargo Center and you want to host a big event, you have a very narrow range of a demographic that doesn't have the purchasing power of somebody that's typically older. And there's only so much revenue you can pull from that versus literally any other event. So all these different factors have made esports very difficult, particularly in North America. But having the ability, that knowing that 18 and 25 is a sweet spot for this, that the college, and particularly college ecosystem and the college teams that are participating, there's over 900 schools participating in competitive esports in one way or another in North America right now. in 30,000 plus students, which is about what Division I lacrosse is pretty much. So the numbers are there. It's just how to one, age a fan up into a sport, how to participate, and if you're building infrastructure, if you're building a business around esports and you're not the publisher of the game, it does become difficult to make money. So, for all those reasons, it's and looking at the trends and where esports is going, I wanted to share my experience of kind of how we got there, but also how it directly impacts where we look from an investment standpoint at Ventnor Ventures, knowing that there is a range, that there is a smaller market, but there's still something that can be grown there. So that's kind of my long-winded path of how I got here, and how really looking at esports. I call it emerging media, and there's not a lot of differences between what you'll see in the Manning cast on ESPN2. You have two talking heads over content. This is something Twitch has been doing really well for a long time. So what you'll see is many of the lessons of esports, particularly in marketing, are directly attributable to what you can take to sports, what you can take to other aspects that include media, of how media is watched. So I think the biggest thing esports, and the biggest takeaway of esports, may not be how much money you can make directly participating or viewing it, but the viewership changing for a younger demographic, I think, is very important for sports teams to learn, very important for many of these media companies to learn. And I think that that's kind of pushed the shift more than gaming itself, if that makes sense. So I'll pause there with any questions about kind of how we got here, and then happy to talk about trends and take any questions from there.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks, Rob. Yeah, and again, I tried to tell you guys, this guy's got a great background and really kind of unique, and tells I think, a really interesting story about just relationship building, networking, trying new things in sports and entertainment, and you never know where one pathway may lead you to the next. And so, Rob, that's kind of an incredible story. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
All
How
right,
you participate?
I think that's great. So why don't we, kind of open up to some questions that you might have, because I want to make sure you guys are getting answered the things that you're most interested in, and then I can also kind of fill in some of the gaps here. So anybody want to go first here?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Rob, for like the media side, like the emergent media side of things, do you ever see broadcasting rights being a mainstream revenue source for esports?
Ever? Possibly. In the near term, likely not. So a few factors with that too is, one, you're with esports, you're playing with a ball somebody else owns, and the difference between football, soccer, a baseball, like Wilson, the football maker, doesn't own the content and can't tell the NFL, you know what, you can't play on Sunday, you can only play Saturday at noon. And because these are games and IP owned by publishers that aren't sports teams, they can dictate exactly what they want to do and where. So there's not really a free market to make and to grow this in a way. Now, did Overwatch League get a media rights through ESPN? Like, yes, this has been tried. And what we know is that traditional linear television is not a great model to show esports, just because of what it is. Like, you want to be, and likely on Twitch, you want to follow your certain streamer, or you want to watch your streamer overlaying some competition. We know that that's the preference, particularly in this industry. That doesn't really work well with how media rights are put together today and how broadcast rights are put together. But listen, it's been tried. It's been tried in multiple countries. People will continue to see and figure out if if there is a market for people to watch this, in some way. But Call of Duty League had, I believe, an exclusive right for broadcast rights on YouTube for a couple of years. Overwatch tried this on Twitch. ESPN and Disney have tried this in different ways. So we've seen a lot of ways it hasn't worked. And to say it's never going to work in the future, I think would be incorrect. But I think we have to, one, a world's game has to emerge here, where we have the ability to draw in a larger audience than just a couple 100,000 people. Like, I'll tell you, ESPN will put reruns of a non-live cornhole event in the summer that had more viewers than the Overwatch League did when they put it on ESPN. So the audience is not really developed enough yet. And again, because it's a very small market, it's 18 to 25. It doesn't really extend past that point. which makes the viewership fall, which makes broadcast rights even harder. So you can look and see who's tried this and who's kind of failed so far, but not to say that a world's game is not going to emerge that everybody likes to watch, or in other markets where media rights are less developed, particularly Europe or South America, that there might be some trends where that'll pick up in a smaller way. All being said, media rights and broadcast media rights are going to get tougher, because right now we're seeing trends, particularly towards this North American Olympics coming. All these leagues are emerging that are, these niche sports. So we have, pro volleyball leagues. We have a bunch of, and not niche, but we have a bunch of now women's soccer leagues that have emerged. We have a bunch of men's soccer leagues that have emerged. And I wasn't kidding about cornhole. Like cornhole, it brings this professional cornhole that people are making a living doing it. So, now you have so many different fragmented, different forms of sports. Esports really has to fight and have a killer content idea that can be much, much broader than 18 to 25 for them to get some actual sustainable media rights.
Yeah, that actually brings me to a question just about, sports entertainment in general, Rob. Where do you think sort of the RSNs are going to be going? And
RSNs are tough. So regional sports network, and for anybody who hasn't taken the sports marketing portion of this, but a really great model up till about 5 or 6 years ago, right, where teams, and particularly NHL, NBA, and MLB, they would have local market rights. So for the Flyers, NBC Sports Philadelphia is where you would watch Philly. It's where you obviously watch the Sixers, where you watch the Flyers. That local advertising dollar is a very difficult sell. And the amount of rights that National is now commanding to put these on TNT, to put these on, how Apple has or had the exclusive for MLS to have a subscription, how the NFL has the Sunday ticket. The model is starting to erode, where there's not enough dollars coming in to keep up with, certainly where the teams are going and the valuation of these teams. And now the private equity is getting involved. It's just going to keep going. So local markets advertising, which is how regional sports networks live, they just can't keep up. And this is why they're starting to fail, why many of the sports teams are bringing those rights in-house to then resell them. So it's going to be an interesting, I think, few years from a regional sports network perspective. But, linear television, I suspect not a lot of people here watch regular broadcast television, may not even have cable. There's a lot of cable nevers. I prefer YouTube TV and watching in a way that's much, much different than a normal person did 10, 20, 30 years ago, for sure. And that erosion of cable subscriptions versus more entertainment options, I think, just put more pressure on a regional sports network to survive in this model where these teams command a lot of dollars in order to get the content on TV.
Yeah. Huh. What else? Who else has a question?
I have a question.
Yeah, Julian, sure.
Do you ever try to directly market towards like an older demographic, or do you find that it's like not worth the time and money?
I have found it is not worth the time and money, but I have done it, and here's a few ways how. So, finding really lightweight ways to get rec leagues together, like you would if you're over the age of 25. Like you might want to play kickball, volleyball, have these adult leagues that are very popular. Even golf now. We have tried and worked with partners in order to kind of help age up and find products that take less time, that might appeal to a game that's wasn't popular, was popular 10 or 20 years ago. It just, again, it's very difficult for people to jump back into a game, because there's a couple of reasons why. So once you get a little older, you have a significant other, or you have a family, a game is usually a one-to-one experience. So if I'm in a family living room and we're all watching the Philadelphia Eagles play, this is an experience we can all share. If I'm playing Call of Duty, that's not an experience the whole family can share. Or if I'm playing, any game, it's a one-to-one experience where I'm in control, and the rest of the family, the rest of the household, isn't getting paid attention to, because there's no shared experience. And when you bring or look at a living room, or you're sitting at a computer, that from a household dynamic really makes esports and gaming difficult versus traditional sports. Again, it's kind of different here, where that singular experience and the household dynamics when you get older becomes very difficult. So listen, we tried. We'll continue trying, as an industry to get this to age up. It's, in North America particularly, I'm not, some European countries and definitely South Korea have different cultures around gaming and the superstardom and, different infrastructures that allow for esports to be a larger part of the culture. A North American normal sports consumer, North American consumer has rejected it so far. So it doesn't mean that, people in this class and, on the Zoom can't help figure out these problems, and that the dynamics of how gaming works may change over time and how people are playing them or playing them together as a family. And this is where I bring it back to Jackbox games. Like, that's a shared experience. An entire room or entire family can play, much different than somebody playing, World of Warcraft or Call of Duty or Sims in a one-to-one experience that excludes the rest of your household. So that's one of the bigger problems to solve from a marketing perspective, but certainly for esports and gaming in general, is, after a certain age, household dynamics now become more important because it's not a shared experience like watching your Flyers play.
So Rob, we talked, I guess, early in the semester about sort of this concept that's sort of evolving as younger demographics are shifting in terms of their lifestyles. And we talked a little bit about the concept of sort of this third place, right? A place where they could go outside of sort of their home and work. And, all the data is saying that, 20-year-old kids are not spending less time at the bar than a previous generation. They're more conscious about healthy lifestyles. And I know, just even here in Philadelphia, I'm starting to see pop up these sort of gaming cafes, more golf simulators, things that are more focused around sort of social outlets that aren't heavily like just on drinking, like that maybe I participated in my 20s. So do you think that going to have an impact on esports?
Yeah, sportstainment is a category, and this term is used loosely, but Topgolf, really one of the bigger pioneers of the sportstainment category, where you're going for a shared experience and something that is somewhat competitive, but very, very laid back. And as we were building at Nerd Street Gamers, as we were building these local host gaming facilities, we kept that in mind of how to make this a more shared experience. And again, gaming, because many of these games and many of these competitive games is something that's one-to-one, you can have a social experience if you get a team of 4 or 5 friends and you want to play. These places exist. The problem is they don't make any money. And even Topgolf kind of struggles here. So, you have to look at the unit economics of Topgolf. Costs up to $70 million to make for each unit. Participating and how the demographics are shifting where there is less consumption of alcohol, which is a high margin product. There's financial problems for even Topgolf. You look at, and I think one of the bigger ones coming in right now is the F1 arcade. So racing simulators, they're building one in Philadelphia on, I think it's Walnut Street in the next couple months. They have a couple others. Their 99% of their revenue is the bar. So, as this is shifting, so there is less consumption of alcohol, as there are more experiences, we still haven't figured out the unit economics to make this actually work in a way where that dollar per square foot of retail space can even make up in a game where, are you going to pay $150 to play Call of Duty with your friends in a shared experience? No, like that the dollars don't work correctly there. And if you're not drinking, how does this venue make money? So, we are going to see a lot more people attempt this, like a putt shack. Great example. It's massively expensive to go play 9 holes of golf. However, it's a great experience. But again, 80-90% of their take in revenue is alcohol. So, for somebody to crack the code here for something that is low cost, that is something that people can entertain, that will, be able to pay for the real estate under that, that's a really fun problem to solve, something that I know we work with a lot of people to figure out. But that's the equation. It's, can it, in the absence of or the reduction of a high margin product like liquor, which drives a lot of retail and experiences, or has historically, if you remove that, if you replace that with, let's just say it's cannabis or mushroom drinks or something along those lines, as we go to the future here with different regulations, that is possible. But you always have to think of, like, I'm sitting in Center City, Philadelphia on Walnut Street in 10,000 square feet. This is expensive real estate. Like, how is this going to get paid for And is the value of what I'm doing going to be worth it to the end consumer? And many consumers are saying no. And even at Topgolf, which continues to have and not grow as much as they used to for sure, and having some down quarters, it's an interesting thing to watch in the sportstainment category. But including like golf simulators, like it's a good one. They're cheap. You have to put them in weird places in order to kind of make the economics work. But again, if you're charging a group of 4 people $100 an hour for that simulator, that square footage is stuck, not making another dollar unless you can upsell into a food, a beverage, or some other product. So the reduction of consumption is actually going to reduce the amount of sportstainment venues, and we'll have to figure out how to get these unit economics to work again.
Right. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, who else has a question? All right. So the other question I had for you, Rob, is obviously you were part of Xfinity Live, and by all reports, Xfinity Live kind of was what actually ended up being developed and executed, was not what the original plan was. But now it looks like they're actually now going and pushing more towards that expansion with the 2026 World Cup. What do you think that sort of complex is going to look like by the time we get to the World Cup?
I mean, I think if you just Google what Xfinity Live was supposed to be in 2008 before the global economy crashed, I think we'll have something a lot closer to that. So where H-Lot is in between the Wells Fargo Center and obviously Xfinity Live, filling that in with retail, with other shared experiences like golf simulators. The company that has built these indoor domes to watch live games. I think you'll see a few of those. Esports will likely not be a part of it based on Comcast losing a lot of money in esports on their team. But I would expect that you'll see more hospitality, more retail experiences, a couple tertiary sports like being able to play, or have the ability to play pickleballs, cornholes, volleyball leagues can be on this footprint. There will be some type of sports setup, youth sports, and being able to have basketball courts and things like that. I know they're looked at. But it's really, that is really expensive real estate, because for every, and I think we ran a study on if we continue to build out Xfinity Live when we did in 2011-12 and go to G-Lot, which is on your way to Broad Street if anybody's familiar with it, there was no hotel concept that we could find that would make more money than the parking spots under it. It just didn't make any financial sense. So, for $50 a spot, $60 a spot, some points, I think it was 45 for the Eagles game last weekend.
Yeah.
And 90 for an RV. But, doing that 250 days a year, that's the most expensive real estate. So building something on top of it has to make a lot of sense, has to make a lot of money. Obviously, it's been talked about it and that there's going to be a new arena. So, I expect some really cool things to happen in that area. But it's again, like it has to make more money than the parking spots are covering up.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It will be interesting to see what sort of happens there, and whether it continues to stay as all 4 teams sort of are now centrally located. Which again, we now know the Sixers are back there, but we don't know what's going to happen with the Eagles, the Phillies. How that's all up for debate, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody can agree that having all 4 teams, and this is where I think the union really missed out on a generation, was building in Chester versus figuring out something in South Philly. I think they could have had a lot more success, and maybe they will in the future and figure it out. But there's a lot of smart people between the Sixers and certainly Comcast Spectacor and the Eagles and the Phillies there. So I'm sure in 10 years we'll have something pretty cool that we can all go to.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So we got a few more minutes here. Anybody else have a question for Rob? All right. So Rob, I'll just kind of I'll just kind of, I'll kind of ask you a final question and then we'll wrap things up. I just always like to ask our guest speakers sort of, looking back on your sort of career path and now, 20 years in sports and entertainment, what advice would you give yourself, that you would think would be helpful for this generation of folks that want to get into these industries?
I mean, broadly, I would have started investing money earlier. That I would have smacked myself in the face of all the stupid things I bought in my 20s, where I could have been putting money into ETFs. That's always in constant of. I would always wish I would have started investing earlier. But you know, the biggest thing of not a what if, but what I could have done more is just, you know, one, continue to be persistent. You know, make sure that you understand and learn more about your craft, because it'll infinitely make you more valuable. And you know, looking back, I wish I would have learned, you know, a lot more things from a lot of great people I worked with in order to help, you know, some of the challenges I have today. I probably would have figured out a lot easier if I would have, you know, certainly opened my mind a little bit more to making sure that, you know, how people did different things. And, you know, this is maturity. It's just, when I was 20 something years old, I felt I was the dumbest person alive, and I still feel look back at that person. But, you know, just making sure, you know, persistence, ask questions, and, you know, like I said, like, just keep your head on a swivel for opportunities that, if you're doing the right things, opportunities emerge organically. Just it's an energy. It just gets drawn to you. So, you know, hard work and persistence, and it's definitely, you know, will separate you from a lot of people. But just making sure you're learning, you're understanding, and you're sharpening your craft. If you have something that's valuable to somebody else that somebody else doesn't know, you're infinitely more employable, and you can make a lot more money, which I recommend making more money if you can.
All right. There you go. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to meet with us. And
Cool.
If any of the students want to try to connect with you, what would be the best way to do that?
LinkedIn. Yeah, just find me on LinkedIn. Happy to respond to you. Or you can shoot me an email, rob@ventnorventures.com. Might take me a couple of days there. LinkedIn's probably better, but happy to help connect or get anywhere we need to go. If you're looking or for coaching, or just want to get on an email list with our advanced sports company that works a lot with new grads in order to get them into sports or to look at opportunities, advancedsports.com. Pete Powell's the CEO there, great guy, and somebody good to connect with too.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Great catching up with you. Maybe I'll see you in New Orleans.
I'll see you in New Orleans. All right.
All right, you got
Thanks,
it.
everybody.
Thanks, guys. See you. Have a good weekend, everybody.